Welcome to Let's Talk Antigonish, the podcast where we sit down with neighbors, experts, and friends to explore the stories, the questions, and the big little issues that shape life in our town, one conversation at a time. This week, we're talking The Ships of 1801 with its producer and writer, Duncan MacDonald. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Antigonish. It's me, Justin.
And this is Anuj.
Hello, good sir.
How are you, sir?
It's a beautiful spring. Well, it's not that beautiful, but it's a nice spring day.
It's coming. It's coming.
The black flies are out my way. So
yeah, and the rabbits and the raccoons
and the rats. Yeah, we've been having a whole conversation about nuisance wildlife this morning.
Yeah.
But we're going to shift gears into something that's not a nuisance at all, and that is Duncan MacDonald. And Duncan is here to talk about the Ships of 1801. Duncan is the producer and the head writer, the only writer. Are you the only writer?
I get help.
The head writer for the Ships of 1801. So, Anuj, I have been to see these productions, and I feel like everybody in the cast at this point, you know nothing about this.
Exactly.
So I think we are the perfect sort of slice of Antigonish life,
True.
which is there are some people who are super into this and know about it, and then there's a whole section that has never heard of it.
But would like to.
So that's what this episode is going to be. We are going to explain what the Ships of 1801 is. So if this is a phrase you've never heard of, Duncan, can you explain what Ships of 1801 is and its origins?
Yes, so we're going back maybe 12 years, I guess. We made a trip to Scotland, my wife and I, and we were standing on the shore by Fort William. And in the early morning, you could almost imagine the ships leaving the harbour with people on it. And around that same time, Hector McIsaac did a show called the Black Donnellys. And he dressed the people up to suit and he wrote the songs to suit the characters. And I thought it made the songs a lot more interesting. So I put those two things together. And then I came back and I was talking to Irene MacLeod, and she was on the Highland Society, and she was talking about if we could have a concert, our local concert. So I said, well, maybe I can fix up something, not knowing anything about it. And came up with this idea that the ships of 1801, in 1801, there was about 5 ships came into Pictou. And my ancestors were on those ships. And so that was some interest to me. So I started to investigate that and got more interested in it. Now, there were a few ships before that, but 1801 was kind of the big influx of people coming, and they would land in Pictou. And I think, as I recall, that there was a bishop or a priest there, and he was directing the people to go toward Antigonish, and you can stay together if you go down the coast. So they went down to Arisag and then continued on from there. So with that concept, we decided we would try and do a show, and it would be on a ship. And they would tell the story and sing the songs on the ship. And because I guess the idea was good, I was able to attract very good people right away. And so that was the first ship show, and then we did 2 more, always telling a story that was real. So we went back and looked at history and saw reasons for the immigration, and then we wrote 2 more shows around that.
So just so people know, in 1801, these are ships coming from Scotland.
Yes.
With Gaelic-speaking people from the Highlands,
Right.
Mostly.
Yes, correct.
And they were escaping, and they were coming here to start a new life.
Yeah, there was any number of reasons, but to make a long story short, conditions weren't good in Scotland, and they were looking for something better. And by that time, they were getting some letters from America and from Canada saying, there's lots of land here. You can own your own land. So, and there's a lot of it, so why don't you come over here? So I suppose that, and then the small villages, I think, would meet together and they would discuss, should we go? So a lot of them came as a group, so stay together. So that's why you have some MacDonalds in Antigonish and some Chisholms and some McNeils and so on.
Yeah, and so the show that you're making is sort of it's a fictional, like you don't know what was happening on those ships in the original production, but you're talking about these are real names and real people that you're reimagining. Is that sort of the idea?
We are now. At that time, we were telling real stories of the people, but we weren't naming any people.
Oh, okay.
because we didn't. It's actually fairly difficult to get personal information from the people that were on those ships because a lot of them didn't write and they didn't keep track and they had no way to record what was going on. But the stories did get passed down through generations. And so, almost everything we did, we tried to base it on something that actually did happen, but we didn't have the real facts.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the first shows that you did, the first one at least, it was outside, was it not? Or
No.
No?
Well, some people thought we should, but I was always concerned about the weather.
It's probably smart.
Because if you had 30 people in a big set and it rained.
So where was it?
We were in the rink, the Millennium Center.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We set up the stage there and the lighting there. So
All right.
you could see 1,200 people, which we did.
You had 1,200 people at the
1,200
first show?
people.
The first show, yeah.
Wow.
That's intense.
And which year was that?
You'd have to go back 12 years. I'm not sure.
Wow. And that was it was part of the Highland Games,
Yeah, it was so. Between Irene and I, we thought that this would make a good addition to the Highland Games, but to tell the story of how the Highlanders got here, at least one of the stories. Yeah. So that was one of our main objectives, was to tell our story. Mm-hmm. And by our story, I mean, I have a Scottish Highland background, and so that's the story. There's a lot of other stories you can tell, but that's the one I felt that I wanted to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And so you mentioned that you produce now 3 plays.
No, this is our 12th.
Okay.
This year, but we did 3 plays, 3 shows that were telling the story of the Highlanders coming over here. One was the story of the Chisholms. They were forced out of Strathglass, so we did that story, based a lot of that on the real, dialogue or the real happenings. And the other one was the year of the burning, which was a place up in further north. I forget the name of it. But anyway, there was a lot of places burnt and people were forced out. So whole villages were burnt from what our research shows, and they had to leave. So that was the third show. And then we jumped ahead about 100 years to the Keppoch, where a lot of the people had settled. And so then we came up with the idea if we would put it in a house in the Keppoch, we'd try that, and then the people would all come to visit. It would be so each of those communities had a Cayley house where maybe the leaders of the community or the most influential people in the community would have people over on a fairly regular basis in the winter when there wasn't much else to do. And they would sing and dance and tell stories. So we thought we'd tell our stories through that. Mm. So I think the first one was just called a Cayley House. And then from then on, we've been telling Keppoch stories.
And without asking too much about these stories, are they happy stories, sad stories, stories from Scotland or after they arrived here? Are they,
Well, the first 3 on the ships, there certainly was some drama and some sadness because it was horrific. If you put 200 people in a medium-sized house for 3 months and rock the house every day continuously, so it was terrible. We did some stuff that was a little bit emotional. So the ships were a little bit more. Since we've moved to the Keppoch, there's not much sadness. We focus on comedy and dialogue and
celebrations.
Yeah,
okay.
Families getting together.
The sort of current version of the show that's been going on the past 9-ish years, it sounds like, that's set in the Keppoch, and it's following the same individuals for the most part. And so people come back year after year to see the show, and they are revisiting the same people with the same sort of setting. Yes. So that's what's been going on. So you are writing the script and also the music?
I write the lyrics for some songs, but we have very talented musicians who look after the music.
And so you're coming together every year that's a huge undertaking to create a whole script and all the music and rehearse. So tell us about the process of you're about to put on a show in a couple months. Like for you personally, how has this been working out from year to year in terms of your
we never know from one year to the next. So I think 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, it was Save Our Kepik School. So in Antigonish County and many rural parts of Nova Scotia, everybody had a small one-room school or two-room school. And they would always try to save that school because it was kind of the heart of their community, the center of the community. But gradually these schools closed down till there was only one or two big schools left. So we did that show. We had that idea that they would try to save their school. And then had the idea that realistically, in the early 1900s, many thousands of people were leaving Antigonish to go to Boston. The Boston states where everybody went. Everybody.
Because of the economic reasons?
Yes, and they were poor.
Right.
We were poor in Antigonish County and probably town too, which is going to be the heart of this new show.
Right.
Anyway, so once it started, once the young people went down there and they got jobs, a lot of the women worked in domestics, as domestics, and the men got work as carpenters or laborers. So when they wrote back saying, there's work here if you want to come down. So they went. I was told that Look Harbour had 1,200 people, and when this exodus was over, there was 400 left. And so there was 800 people left Look Harbour alone. But Antigonish area and some of Cape Breton were the hardest hit. There was just literally thousands left. So that was home from the Boston States. We did that show.
What years or what period would that be when this
Well,
happened?
at the end of the 1800s it started, and then it went up to about 1930 was the main. And I think the Depression then, there weren't so many jobs then, so people, and then I think the U.S. maybe started to put in some regulations at the border that you had to have your papers organized. So, but people, it was a big thing. Every summer people came home. So that was a good story. And then last year we did Kepik Goes to the Fall Fair. So they call it the exhibition now, but back when in the 40s, the exhibition, the Fall Fair, was a big thing locally. Many people put vegetables in and cattle in and sheep in and everything. So it was almost all local people. And the Kepik people were asked to go down and entertain for an hour because they had a lot of talented people. But the people on Egg Mountain, and if you know where Egg Mountain's toward Airsag, they were asked, they weren't asked, I'm sorry, they heard about the Kepik going, and they were very jealous. So they went over to the Kepik to confront them and say, why are you going? So that was last year. And then we didn't have any more ideas. And I saw a talk at the museum by Robin Newstater from the Extension Department and Sophie Gallant, who was a student. And they talked about Cody and the Sisters of St. Martha's. So I thought, well, what if Cody and the Sisters of St. Martha's went to the Kepik to try to organize them and explain to them that the way you're operating is no good. It's not going to get you anywhere. You're operating the same way your ancestors did. That's the way your grandfather worked, and that's the way your father worked, and that's the way you're farming.
Fascinating.
It's not going to go anywhere. So that was Cody's big cause. So we thought, well, why don't we do that show? And so I started asking around, and I was told by people who knew that if you're going to tell that story, you have to tell it the right way. You can't make up stuff that Cody said, because you just can't do that. It's against the law. And so we did a lot of research and talked to people and come up with what we think is things that Cody would have said had he gone to, and he went to hundreds of small communities,
correct,
fishing communities and small farming communities, and tried to organize the people. So that seemed like a good idea. Mm-hmm. So we wrote that around. And then in talking to some more people, they said, well, the Sisters of St. Martha's were very involved with this too. So I went to see the sisters, and they told me their role. And it turns out the two of the sisters that I was talking to, their fathers were pallbearers at Cody's funeral. So they knew the story pretty well. And then Fraser Dunn in Lower South River was a relative of Cody's, so he knew the story very well too. So we've tried to make it as realistic this time as we could. So it's more of a historical. The other one was certainly historical fiction, but this is more historical.
A bit more research into this one.
Yeah.
It's still funny?
we hope there's some funny parts.
So, Anuj, I'll say, because I was talking with Robin about the history of community theater in Nova Scotia, and we had a whole conversation about how much was happening in terms of just local communities and local groups creating or writing their own shows. There's a whole long tradition in this province of theater along the lines of what Duncan is currently doing. So I don't know if most people understand how intensely popular these shows are. They are 1,200, you said, for the first show. Yeah. All of the rest of the shows have pretty much been sold out.
Yes.
So we're talking thousands of people that come to see these community shows every year, and that's sort of a long tradition of theater. Yeah. Can you tell us about your thinking in terms of the popularity of the show? How many times can you do it? Like, would you do it 50 times if you could? Because I know the constraints are, these are all community volunteer actors, and there's dozens of them. So tell us about that.
Yeah, that certainly is an issue. When we do the shows in Antigonish, so we book people for the week, and we tell them to clear that week. But then to go beyond that, to get 30 people to clear another weekend in the summer, it gets very difficult. And, I mean, there are a lot of them. We share our profit, whatever we make from ticket sales. And so everybody gets a piece of the pie, except a few people won't take money because they always say, no, just give it to the young people.
Oh, so you're a profit sharing for all the actors and musicians. Oh,
is it a cooperative, an association? How does that?
Well, I guess it's a cooperative.
Right.
In the sense
Interesting.
That,
That's cool.
So everybody gets something.
Right.
Even the smallest, the youngest, we pay them. And so it's... Ask the question again.
Yeah,
please.
You're constrained a little bit by the fact that you're dealing with all volunteers, although they're getting paid, but they're all community members with full-time jobs, so they can't just do a run of 50 shows.
Right.
So does that change the way you write or the way you plan, or?
No, I don't think the way I write. We write this so we could show. We have gone many times to the Cost Centre. And we've gone many times to Straths Bay Place in Mabou.
Okay.
Last year we couldn't go to Mabou because their board of directors were disbanded. Oh. But we're going this year again. So, but it is difficult to get everybody to go in the same direction because there's a lot of hours have to go into preparation.
And the logistics of it.
Yeah, and some of the songs we do traditional songs because Where Have All the Flowers or Wild Mountain Time. Mm-hmm. But we have a few people like locally that write for us, write the lyrics, and then they may put the music to it, but more likely the band will take it and put music to it. So it's a lot of work that goes into it, and then it's just difficult to take it on the road. We have, but it is difficult, and they were asking a lot of people because they're doing it. I mean, we had to pay full salaries for whatever. We couldn't do this. Right. But it's just people give their time and their talent, I think, because they like doing it and they like each other. And the stories are popular. For some reason, people, I guess, it's not people like to see their own story. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about people remember the one-room school or the small school. They remember their families being in Boston. If they didn't go, they remember the families being there. They remember the fall fair. Mm-hmm. They remember the Cody times where people were having house meetings, kitchen meetings, and talking and trying to organize. And a lot of them, if they don't remember it directly, they remember their father or their grandfather or their grandmother meeting Cody in Dover or Isaac's Harbour or Airsag or wherever. And so there's a lot of people, when you talk to them, have connections to what we do. And so I think that's what we try to do too, is tell people their story.
If you go to see one of these shows, I think one of the impressions you're left with, aside from the fact you might connect to the story, is that, oh my gosh, these people are intensely talented, because the people who are coming or in these shows some of them are professional musicians. Most of them are really proficient local musicians. Yeah. So tell us about who.
So is it a musical or is it?
How would you describe it? It's not a musical in a theater sense, but there's a ton of music in it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's probably about 50% music and 50% dialogue. So we're telling the stories and then we try to relate the music to it. So Kevin Guilfoyle is one of our writers, and he understands the history and the heritage. So when he knows we're doing the Kepik story, then he will offer songs that are appropriate to it. And then, so we try to fit, not necessarily, but we try to fit the songs into the script. So as an example, he wrote one called Giants of Men, and it talks about the courage and the strength that those first people must have. In this case, to walk up to the Kepik with an axe or a saw and 50 acres of trees, and your plan is to cut down 5 acres with an axe and a saw and clear the land and plant the land and build a house and raise a family. How much courage did that take? And how much willpower did that take? So a song like that, Giants of Men, and not to pretend that there weren't giants of women too, but this song is called Giants of Men.
Yeah. There's. I know we were talking before we started the recording about some of the people involved in the show. Like I know a lot of people, and we were talking about Julia Shields. Yeah. This is someone, a local. She's training to be a physician now, but she's in theater a lot, and she comes up from Halifax, even though she's studying, to be in the show. I feel like the people who are loyal to the show, who are in the show, are intensely talented and want to keep coming back to perform. Have you found this to be true over the years?
Yes, and we're very happy that they do. And we have Ann Holton and her 3 daughters come down from Pictou County.
Yes.
And Katie O'Coin comes down from Pictou County. So we've had a few people from Abu in the show, but not this year. It's a little difficult to do it. But yeah, it's amazing. I am amazed and so pleased that these people come back. And it makes my job easier because I know that, the type of characters they are. So when you're writing, you can think, well, why wouldn't that person say that, or why? And if we need a song, we need something funny. This year we have a song, which again Kevin Guilfoyle wrote, called Buttermilk Blues. And you may be too young to know, but people used to sit and make a churn with a wooden handle. You'd pump up and down in the churn until the cream came. So it's 3 girls. So automatically you think that would be a great song for the 3 kids. They're frustrated. They're not happy. They're sitting in the kitchen, and their mother said they have to make the churn. So they take turns singing that song. Yeah. So that's kind of how we relate the songs to the show. Not always. Sometimes we just put in a song that, with the thought that if Moses Cody or the Sisters of St. Martha's were going to the Kepik and everybody's coming over to the house to see them, someone would certainly say, well, we should provide some entertainment. These people are coming to our community. Let's show them what we have, what the best are. So they might just sing the song called Wild Mountain Time.
Yeah.
Because
everyone can sing that one, yeah.
Yeah. In some ways, as you said, it's highly relatable to people who have themselves experienced that, or their ancestors and heard that story. But in some ways, it is probably a universal story. And those who may not be part of that history, like, you, Justin.
Yeah.
Why do you enjoy such show, and what is in it, what appeals to you? And I would love to go to next show sometime if I can get the tickets.
Yeah. Well, that's true, because I don't have any skin in the game, and that I have none of this history. I'm not from here.
So what is so appealing about these stories to you?
I like to see good stories and talented people doing things on a stage, especially involving music. So if you like theater and you like music, you can go watch it and just be blown away by the talent on the stage. That's part of it. And the other part of it is, like, I know, like, most of the cast, so I want to go see my friends doing things. But that, I think, in a sense, is a bummer, because tickets are hard to get. So tell us about, because the show is in July, but tickets are already on sale. Is it already sold out? Like,
No, it's not sold out yet, but we have sold a lot of tickets already.
Yeah, because I feel like it is hard to get
into. And they're on
into.
sale right now?
Yes.
Okay.
And how do people get tickets?
Well, we're very fortunate, again, that some of the local businesses will help us out. So the $5 to $1, McKinnon's, which I guess is now called Macquarie Drugstore,
Right.
Trendy's out in the South River Road, and Visible Changes, I know those people well, and they sell tickets for us. And the St Andrews store out in St Andrews, they sell tickets for us. So I sell some. And we get calls from like the Alumni Association, and they'll order 40 tickets.
Yeah.
And so I deliver them. But mostly, it's so great that the businesses sell the tickets, and all we have to do is give them some free tickets, and it's just
And
wonderful.
how many people can be accommodated in these shows?
This year we can do about 1,200 again.
On a single day?
No,
on
312 is maximum, and
Yeah.
we do it at Schwartz.
It's Schwartz and St. FX. Yeah. So
Schwartz is a great venue for us. We don't use a lot of lighting or special effects, so it's just pretty well straightforward. And the stage is the house, and we set it up that
And
way.
what are the dates for this? Will you?
July the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Okay.
So what's fascinating about this is Duncan's talking about physical tickets available at stores. And
Yeah.
as someone who puts on different kinds of shows, like we're constantly worried about getting the word out, and like you're trying to sell online and you have offline versions, and but this is not a problem for ships because they have you have to physically go get the ticket at a store, and yet people will 100% do that, and it will be sold out. So it's the old method of selling tickets, and I
Or
find
the newest method of selling tickets.
maybe it's the new method. Yeah, it's what's old is new again.
Yeah.
But I find that fascinating, just from a person who's trying to do things.
Right.
Just that tells you how intensely popular this show is. That you have to drive out to a store to pick up a ticket, and people will definitely do it.
Yeah, and I'm definitely intrigued, and I'm wondering, how can we get the newcomers who are not necessarily attached to those stories to get and see the show?
Yeah,
how can we,
You're not trying to drum up sales, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah, we still are. We hope that we don't have to do too much. XFM will run ads and an interview. You do an interview. That's great. Halifax Herald will probably do an interview. Guysborough Journal will probably do an interview. Mm-hmm. So we have quite a few sources like that. And we put up posters. And whenever I go to Sobeys,
yeah, people just stop you.
Well, or I stop
and
them.
if I may ask,
I stop them.
You're just shoving tickets in people's hands.
And may I ask what the price is for?
It's
just
$40 for adults.
Okay.
We had to. We've been going with 30 for a while, but I think everybody knows that things have just gone up, and it's it's just the way it is. Or our sound in our theater and everything's gone up. So I think this year I took a look at other places and other concerts, and I think we're well within. Yeah. I think the Cirque Soleil is $250.
Yeah, you're a bargain compared to Cirque du Soleil. Is anyone doing rope work or gymnastics on stage?
I hope not.
That's how you can get the price up.
Yeah.
But so what is the future of this? Because you've been doing this now for 12 years. Is it something you envision going on forever, the next 30, 40 years? Or is it just this is Duncan's brainchild, and if you're like, listen, next summer I'm going to Australia, forget it, and then it's over.
Yeah, I don't know. I would like to do another ship show. Not to go in too much detail, but in around 1812, a lot of people already have been forced out to the coast, and they were either fishing or collecting kelp. And the farmers that were forced out there weren't particularly good at either one, and it was a difficult fishing in the North Atlantic is not easy, especially in those days. So the kelp industry was something they could work at. It was drudgery, and it was very difficult, but the lords and the chiefs were making money off it. And the reason they were is because England, the Napoleon Wars were going on, and they couldn't ship stuff back and forth to Europe. So kelp was money maker. But then the war was over, and they could get back to Europe to get whatever they wanted. So the kelp industry collapsed. And so there these hundreds of people were on the coast with nothing now. They had no livestock anymore, and their little bit of money they could make from kelp was gone. So in some cases, the landlords just said, okay, we'll pay for you. We'll pay for the ship. You just go. So they left. So and this show would be called Loch Harbour No More, because there's a song called Loch Harbour No More.
And this would be set 100 years previous.
This would be going back to 1812.
So so it's sort of a departure from the last few years.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting story, and it's the story of us. So in that story, we would hopefully use real characters, because we know some of the characters that were on the ships, not all on the same ship, but we'll put them on the same ship. And then John Hamilton will know pipe tunes that came on the ship. Someone else will know the dances that came on the ship. Someone else will know the songs, and we can imagine the stories, the arguments they would be having. Should we go or should we not go? It's a big ask to take your family to the woods of North America, the Kepik.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, we can't stay here because things are so bad. So what are we going to do? So that will be the central question. What are we going to do? And then, of course, they'll decide to go on the ship. And on that ship, they'll tell the stories, play the music, do the dances that they normally would do. So what we're trying to do is show how, go back to our book again, how the customs and traditions got here. This is the only way they could have got here on that ship. There was no airplanes, there was no communications other than you get on the ship and you take your culture and your songs with you.
That's interesting, yeah.
And so that's another story that could happen. I don't know.
Is there a movie in the future on this?
No.
But there is a book. Tell us about this book.
Yeah, well, I'm with the Highland Society, and my idea was originally that anybody coming onto the Highland Society should have a background in many of these traditions and customs. So why don't we put them all together in one book, and then this would be mandatory reading. So you talk about fiddling, step dancing, bagpipe music, ceilidh house, food, whatever traditions we still hold and try to maintain here. So I contacted a number of people, and they agreed to do a chapter each. So they did that, and then we sent it to a friend of mine in Pictou County who's a writer, and she would agree to edit it. So then we talked to Rapido, because I had good information, telling me that was the right place to go.
We've had a lot of conversations, Duncan and I.
And so we contacted them, and they said, sure.
Great.
And so we sent them the material, and it's gone back and forth a little bit. But right now, as far as we know, it's being printed.
Fantastic.
So in a week or two, we're hoping to get 100 copies of this.
And it might be on sale in July.
Hopefully it will be
Okay,
on
great.
sale in July. And we'll have we'll do the Antigonish Highland Society is going to sponsor this, and they will help sell it. But it was never decided. It was never the intention to make money. It was to, again, if somebody came to the Highland Games and said, I hear a lot of, where does this fiddling come from? And then you can read chapter 10. And it's not it's not an in-depth, but it'll give you a general idea of how the fiddling got here on the ship, how it maintained itself, and that tradition, how it stayed with us, and where it is today. And so if you take each of the topics, Highland dance, you do the same thing. And so that's the idea.
I have a slightly different question on this. So a lot of immigrants who move from their original lands to different places often preserve their culture, their music, in fact, much more than the original land. So, for example, Indians moving from India to Suriname have maintained their traditions from 200 years back or 150 years back, more than India has changed in the meantime. Mm-hmm. And so would Scottish people today be able to identify with these stories that, they have moved on, they have lived their life in Scotland? How would you characterize that?
Well, I've heard stories that people from, probably mostly from Cape Breton, because that's a little bit more of a traditional area. They've gone back to Scotland to actually teach the Scottish people some of the fiddle tunes that they didn't. So some of the communities, I wouldn't say isolated, but traditional was kept alive in the community. So it was passed down from father to son to daughter, whatever. And it seems that, and a lot of the people who came from the Highlands of Scotland actually left. So I was told that if you go back to Strathglass, you can't find a Chisholm.
Right.
Because they all came over here.
Mm-hmm.
And so they brought their customs again and their music with them. So, but there is a revival in Scotland too of Gaelic, and as there is here. So that's, yeah. So
Yeah, I was just at there's a Celtic Studies conference at the university, and we had organized a little session at Candid for traditional musicians to come, and a lot of the participants they were from all over the place, from Scotland, from Ireland, from Wales, and they came to watch. And at some point during the session, people got up and started singing in Gaelic, in Scottish Gaelic, and all of those people knew the same songs and sang along. So you're dealing with people from diaspora, from all over the place.
Right.
And they had a shared culture that still, through those songs,
Resonates.
they recognized it. They're like, oh, now is the time when we sing the song, and they all sang together. And these are so there's still sort of an undercurrent that is living and breathing, I think.
Yeah.
And
last year we did a few sessions on milling songs, and I was surprised how many people were interested, and they really enjoyed it. And a milling song is where you sit at a table and you beat
I've
the
seen
rhythm
that.
of the cloth. Yeah,
Beautiful. Yeah.
And when we put on these shows or whenever there's still a lot of interest. There's still a lot of people, that are. And now that the school is teaching Gaelic, a lot of it, the Gaelic, and so maybe there's hope. For keep the traditions.
What I think, if you watch the show, Anuj, if you go, you will be struck by the fact there are a lot of kids in the show, dancing and singing and playing instruments. So, in a sense, the current generation of you young people here are still growing up in that tradition and moving out. Duncan, can you tell us more about the kids in the show? I feel like they're an integral part of the show.
Yeah, it was one of the main objectives when we started, is to give some of these kids are taking fiddle lessons or step dancing lessons, so and they don't often get a chance to demonstrate this. And so we thought if we took them in the show, we could put them in front of 1,200 people and show it. And so it's I think it reinforces what they want to do, what the parents want them to do, to see that they can actually demonstrate this in public. And so we've been, it's we've had quite a few. And even when we get my grandchildren, 2 of them went to the show, and you'd wonder right at that age would you care for, and they really liked it. And so there's something in there for it's got that feel. What we're going for is that feel of a community,
Right.
interacting together, which was I don't know anymore I don't think the communities interact as much as they did because they lost their schools. Sometimes they're losing their churches now. So what is it that the community comes together to do? But people still like the idea of being with your neighbors and sharing things with your neighbors. So this is what we're demonstrating this, that everybody comes together. And in those days, it wasn't just the adults. The kids would have to go too to the house, and so they would be asked to sing or dance. So and it seems like that was a good idea.
Yeah.
Because
Even
go ahead.
Even in the Highland Games, we saw a lot of children.
Mm-hmm.
And so in some ways, would you characterize this as a really significant addition to that particular week, where Antigonish again becomes that cultural hub for the community in that sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think we are actually... We have a lot of traditions and customs in our show. And so, I think we're trying to stay with the real customs and traditions. Sometimes some of the things that go on are entertaining, but they're not necessarily a real custom or tradition that came from Scotland. And I won't go into detail on that.
But I can't say, because we were talking with Hector McIsaac about traditional music, which is a fascinating discussion. And one of the things she was highlighting was that it's rooted in tradition, but over the centuries, it's been adding random
flavors.
Things like there's a banjo now in Irish music. I mean, that comes from Africa and the US, or a bouzouki from Greece. That's now part of the thing. And it's always sort of been welcoming for new people to come in to learn. And I feel like also with the traditional Scottish dancing and piping and things like that, you have people who aren't MacDonalds or Chisholms who live in this town who are simply interested in it, or they want to learn Gaelic. And so, there's lots of Indian kids who are also amazing dancers who are, recent immigrants.
Yeah.
I feel like that even though you're rooted in tradition, it's still welcoming of new people into the
yes.
fold as long as they're doing those things. Am I characterizing
Yes.
that correctly?
Yeah, and when we did like those articles, you could see how it changed. Like you say, things coming in. Well, it would have started with the fiddle or mouth music, and then and then piano came in, and then guitars came in, and then drums came in, and it just builds on the roots of the thing. So, yes, it's it has changed. All customs and traditions pretty well have changed, but we have to be aware, I think, of the root of those traditions.
Yeah. And you still have, you're welcoming new people into the fold.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, which I like about it.
Beautiful.
Yeah, probably 70% of the people in our show are not Highland
people. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
They're from Holland or France or Greece, whatever.
Yeah.
But they all fit into we're more than welcoming to anybody.
And they're interested in keeping the culture alive and learning Gaelic and things.
But it also has a purely theatrical value, in terms of the talent you talked about, the storyline, just the dance and music.
Yep.
And so it's a much more than just what
Yes.
It's a holistic thing.
It's
right?
true. You don't need to know anything about the tradition to just show up at one of these shows and be wowed by what's happening, and then inevitably be interested in learning more.
Yeah, we've had people from Germany, Ontario, the U.S., California. They're in town and they came to the show and they couldn't get over how much they enjoyed it, but they didn't understand like all the background. But it was just the singing and the comedy and the dialogue is, I guess, somewhat universal.
Yeah, it is.
And so
it definitely is. But I've been here long enough, so I'm starting to get the inside jokes, because there's a lot of jokes. Duncan this is heavy with jokes, and so maybe some of them were over my head in the beginning, but now I understand. I know the families a little more. I know the history, and then it becomes funnier the more you understand it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, we do try to give some local references, and not everybody's going to get them, but they're inside jokes, I think, is what they are, refer to. And this year, for instance, we have, we're doing Cody, and Cody had field workers. Father Moses Cody would go in and do a general talk. I can see the way you're operating. It's not going to work. You have to listen to me. We got to get cooperatives going here. We have to have credit unions. And then he would turn it over to a field worker, who was the person who looked after the details. So if you're going to start a credit union, then I'm going to introduce you to A.B. MacDonald from Heatherton, and he's an expert on credit unions. I'm not going to do that. You're going to do that. And so that was, how they operated. And same thing bringing in the Sisters of St. Martha's. They were good at handicrafts and stuff, so they came in and do their thing. But it was just... It was a big deal at the time.
Yeah.
And
don't give too much of the story.
No, I was going to. This is what I was going to tell you.
Fantastic.
So one of the field workers was Tando MacIsaac. Tando MacIsaac was an MLA here for a number of years, and his son Angus MacIsaac, and they call him Angus Tando too. Then he was a member here for many years. So this year, when we're doing the show, the field worker is going to be Tando MacIsaac, who is Angus's father. Angus is in the show, and Cameron is playing Angus's father. So Angus is in his 80s, and his father's in his 20s. So, but people who know Angus, will get
we'll
that.
Get that joke.
And it adds that certain realism to it too, and. So we try to do things like that to make that connection to the community. So, then you talk to people and they say, I remember Tando, and so
the memory's still.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered quite a bit. Is there anything more we need to know? Is there anyone special in the show this year that you want to name drop to get people extra excited that you've got a superstar coming? I'm assuming Ethan Hawke's in it. Maybe not yet.
Actually, he's been to one of our shows.
Yeah,
really?
That I knew. Yeah.
And he thought it was good. So, to name somebody? No, I don't think we're going to go there.
Okay, we're not gonna name drop prioritize, but there are a lot of recognizable people. If you're from Antigonish, you'll see some famous local celebrities. Let's say, honestly.
And there are 5-6 places right in town where you can get the tickets.
Yep.
Yeah,
Just
and physical tickets.
Physical
and
tickets.
show. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk about the shows.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
Well, thank you for
Thank you
coming
for
in.
coming.
I appreciate it. I know you're very busy. And knowing you're probably still writing the show up until the last minute. Isn't that how you...
I'm going out there now to fix it.
Exactly.
fix
That's
it.
what it's
So this is how it would work. That I will write a scene, and then someone in the show may say, "Well, what if I do it this way?" And one of the things that I tell people that so we had a community bachelor who was kind of rough on the edges, and he was living in a shack, but he was very interested in moving in and getting married to the widow in the community, who was a good housekeeper and a good bake biscuits and cookies and everything else. So he thought maybe he could move in with her. That would work, and they could get married. And they said, "You're planning to move in?" He said, "Yes, as soon as I get all my stuff organized." And Terry McIntyre said, "But what do you have to organize?" And he said, "I have 53 items. I have a banjo and a deck of cards." And that's what I wrote. And,
Banjo and a deck of
and Ralph
cards.
DeCoe said, "What if I said I have 52 items, a deck of cards, a banjo and a deck of cards, one missing." And that was so much like Billy the Balkan, we call him in the show, because he'd never have a full deck of cards. So I said, yeah, let's definitely go with that line.
That's good. So Ralph is contributing. So
Ralph DeCoste is back. We'll say that
Bond.
one.
Yeah, he's quite a character. I don't know if you've seen Ralph DeCoste.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Just him standing there is already funny. Anyway, all right. Well, Duncan, I really appreciate you coming in and sharing this information. And good luck to everyone who's trying to get tickets.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully we'll see you on the July then.
Yeah. All right. See you later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Antigonish. If you like the podcast, don't hesitate to subscribe. Just go to letstalkantigonish.ca and click. Voila! You'll receive new episodes right in your email inbox.
This podcast is a labor of love. Please consider making a contribution, small or large, maybe a monthly subscription.
A thank you to all of our supporters and subscribers, especially our paid subscribers through the Substack. You are really helping us to keep this podcast going, and we look forward to expanding it in the future. Let's talk, Antigonish.